The bandsaw life is proudly sponsored by Powermatic, Carter Products, and Type Bond, the pro's advantage. All right, now that we've got everything tuned up and we know that it works well, now I'm going to show you how to take standard guides off and install Carter guides. Now, I know a lot of y'all are thinking, well, it worked fine with regular guides. Why would you want Carter guides? Well, number one, these guides create friction, which take the set out of the teeth, and you're constantly readjusting guides like this. Whereas with a Carter guide, your blade is going to last much longer, and once you set it, you shouldn't have to readjust it unless you change a blade. So that's why I prefer Carter guides. But the way that we're going to do this is, first I'm going to unplug this saw, and we're going to completely disassemble it one more time and show you how to install those Carter guides. Get that saw opened up. Take our table insert out and our table leveling pin. Now remember, I don't have the original handle. I just have a nut and a bolt. This was one of my first saws, so I've done a lot to try to make sure that it continues to work well. All right, now we've got this turned around. We're going to take the tension off that blade. All right, now when you take the original guides off this saw, it's pretty easy for the top especially, because all we're going to do is take out one bolt and this whole assembly will come off. You can see that whole block comes off with that one bolt, so you don't have to take it apart at all. Next, you're going to keep your original back thrust bearing. That is not replaced. You will probably need a screwdriver to reinstall the Carter setup. We'll need our Allen wrench. To loosen this up, and your side guides slide right off. Now this again is the bolt that I've installed that was not factory so that I could make my saw work. So we'll get that out of the way. Now this is basically a Carter setup for this saw. This is your upper bracket, and as you can see, it's basically already assembled almost right out of the package. And underneath, we're just going to screw this lower side guides back into place where I pulled that side bolt out. We'll just get it started into that base. Then we'll come right around the back here with our slot head screwdriver. We'll just get that turning into place there. Now, you can see that that turns pretty freely on the end of that piece. It's got to slide onto this shaft. You've got one hole that it lines up with. So don't miss it, or you'll have to back it all the way back out just to get it to start. Now we've got it lined up with that shaft. Just back that. Now, if you feel it binding, it's basically going back faster on one side than the other. So just kind of turn that back out until you feel it free up. And you can see it's bound up again, so I'll turn that, and then I can keep coming back. It's just trying to bind on that shaft. That's about far enough back there. Now the top, it can't get much easier. We simply, a little bit easier from this side. We run our bolt through, snug that up. And we've got the top installed. That's all there is to installing this into the sears. Now let's go through the setup. We'll put our 1/2-inch blade back into place here. All right, now we always want to make sure that the deepest part of the gullet is in the center of the wheel. I didn't have to adjust it because I had already just taken it off and it was already adjusted, so shouldn't have to mess with that. The only time you would have to do that is if you change the size of the blade. Now, the Carter guides work off of a barrel adjustment, so they're really simple to adjust. You simply loosen that screw, and as you can see, it has a barrel on that back edge. So when you get this snug, or you get it in the right place and snug it up, there's no way for that to get out of adjustment. Unlike those cool blocks and side guides, which are constantly having to be readjusted, we're using a nice Allen wrench to tighten it up. So again, unless you change blade sizes or do something major like a tire or something like that on the saw, you should never have to readjust these side guides unless, again, you go to a thicker or thinner blade. So we've got that one adjustment on the outside there. That's the only one that has to be adjusted. This inside is solid. And then we've got our thrust bearing, which I didn't have to change because, again, I set that up on the original equipment. You should not have to readjust that if you're using the same size blade. We'll do the same thing here. First, I need to adjust those side guides so that the front edge is just behind the deepest part of the gullet. We've done the same thing down here at the bottom, and that's done with this screw that adjusts it forward or back. And then all we have to do is adjust our side guides. Do the same thing here. And again, all we're looking for is just a little bit of movement or a little bit of daylight between each bearing. Remember, we're no longer forcing that blade where we want it to go by putting the deepest part of the gullet in the center of the wheel. We're using leverage to direct where that blade goes, so those side guides don't have to be so close. We'll adjust that back thrust bearing. All right, now we've adjusted the side guides front to back on the bottom. We've got them adjusted front to back on the top. Everything is completely readjusted so that we have just that little bit of touch on the side, and it's okay if it touches just a little bit. You just don't want them turning constantly. So now we've got it set up the same way we did with the cool blocks, except for with the bearings, and now that blade is going to last so much longer, and your accuracy is going to stay there instead of having to, again, readjust constantly. So let's see how these Carter guides work. We'll reinstall our table. Put our table insert back in. Put our table leveling pin back up there. Put our cover back in place. Now, I would normally check to make sure that I'm square, which is a real simple process. We'll plug our saw back in. And that is where we make a simple cut, flip the wood over, bring it around back. That blade goes back into that cut, we know we're dead on square. We actually got off just a little bit. So what I'll do is I'll just loosen this up. I'll split the difference. And we'll check it one more time. Now that blade goes back into that cut, I know my table is level across the whole surface of that table. Now, next, we'll use our Carter mag one more time. I'm going to use our FAST, which is the fence alignment system tool. You'll notice it has the groove for the offset of the teeth, magnet for the body of the blade, drops right on there so that we can see where square is to the body of the blade itself. Never ever line up to the table. It's probably never going to be as accurate. Remember, the wheel has a crown. So any little movement of that blade front to back is going to change the angle of the blade. That's why you always want to square your fence to the blade, never ever to the table. Get this lined up. Now let's see how those Carter guides cut. Now when you get to the end here, don't keep pushing with your thumb. Reach around and pull that wood through. That way you don't accidentally cut that thumb. And you can see you just can't get much more accurate than that. Now let's show you that stabilizer for small blade cuts. I hope you all enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.